Fantastic. Okay, welcome everybody to the Force and Scrutiny meeting. This scrutiny meeting is being conducted on a hybrid basis in accordance with the local government elections will affect 2021, which will operate alongside the Council's standing orders. Council standing orders and code of conduct apply at all times during this meeting in the same way as ordinary meetings, and members should conduct themselves accordingly. The meeting is being live streamed to the public. Please can I ask those attending to keep your cameras on but mute your microphones when you're not speaking to ensure there's no unnecessary background noise. Can I also remind members to use the raise hand facility to indicate to me when they wish to speak on a particular item. Please do not speak until I invite you to do so. Remember to unmute your microphone. A recorded version of this meeting will be uploaded for public viewing as soon as possible after the meeting. Welsh translation of the proceedings can be provided upon request. Images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes within the council. Thank you. Okay. On to the first item on the agenda, which is apologies for absence. I think we've got a couple of apologies here.
Councillor Moffat, Chair.
Apologies from Councillor Moffat. Any other apologies? No, okay. Item 2 on the agenda, declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest from any members? Okay, on to item 3, 2025-26 service plan mid-year reviews. And we are starting off this year in a mixed order of people, policy and transformation. So we have a number of cabinet members here, and I don't propose to get you to all introduce yourselves. We all know who you are by now, so over to Reece, but please do feel free to pitch in as the debate goes along, if that's okay.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So a very, very brief intro for you before I hand over to Tracy. So we've got 3 mid-year service plan reviews coming this afternoon. We'll start off with people policy and transformation, then living standards and then finance. So obviously the sort of the corporate heart of the organisation and nuts and bolts that allow the organisation to operate primarily. Pretty good performance across the piece, some challenges that we'll cover off today, and I'll hand over to Tracy, and Tracy can take you through the first service plan.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, members. And then it's 5 cabinet members, 3 in the room and 2 online. And the reason there are 5 cabinet members is quite a complex, diverse service area. So that ranges from assets, digital, people and health and safety, the no straight venture, digital services, equalities. I will read them all, but mainly comms, I should say. So quite a diverse range of services, and for us the service plan, we have more annual reports than any other service, so we report to scrutiny on quite a few of these things, but not this committee. So we have an annual report on risk, on digital, on qualities, and we're responsible for the corporate annual report, digital also. So a number of annual reports elsewhere, so it does make the service plan a bit long and complex. We also support the organisation on areas of planning and performance, so we're also interested in how the service plan works. We sort of present that whole piece for the council, and we take forward then all of the composite thoughts into cabinet within my team. A few key things to flag is the council's new website, which was launched last year. We continue to work with the SRS on the delivery of that, and although work has progressed, that piece of work still isn't complete, and obviously we reported to this committee on comms progress quite recently. We are also coming back to this committee, just to remind you, following last year, on recruitment and retention and our people issues, so that is in February, Kevin, I think, planned at the moment. We've also got an Audit Wales review of the same coming up. One of the major pieces of work is the creation of the new local authority trading company to replace the North JV, Custom Cymru, and a range of the services working on pieces to support that, so HR, digital, and so on. We've got a range of performance indicators. Some of those that are really important, although they all are, is our work around FOIs and subject access requests, which we've worked really hard to bring that into compliance with the ICO's recommendations, and also our work on training, which, although we're responsible for all training, we in HR, particularly around policies in Welsh. I know members previously also have expressed dissatisfaction about the online training that we provide via the NHS website. Really pleased to be launching that project this year. Coming up into the next quarter, we'll be launching Thinking, the new online learning provision. So really pleased to have got to that point. They're probably the key things at this mid-year point, and obviously managers from all of the services in the room.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tracy. Over to the committee then for questions around people, policy and transformation. Yeah, so you can, Councillor.
One for Tracy. You mentioned dros. Can you give us more of a detailed update on the transfer? Is it Cousin?
Cousin.
I got it wrong. Yeah. What is it? Cousin.
Cousin. Phonetically, C-U-H-S. Yeah, so the North joint venture has been in place for just over 10 years, got extended a little bit to allow us to review. That will come to an end on the 31st of December. The new company's been established, set up in Company's House. It's actually NCC Commercial Services that will trade under the name Cynghorydd, which allows us some flexibility and so on there. A final cabinet report will go in December, which will put forward the business plan for the new venture, shareholder agreement and some of the technical documents. We've gone through huge rafts of stakeholder engagement, working with the staff, working with clients, and by and large it's been a successful joint piece of work. So people who worked in North, informing those changes. Obviously there are things the council want to change, otherwise we wouldn't be going through that change, but I think we're heading towards the finish line with some confidence that it'll be set up in time and that we all agree and we're working in quite a different way. Obviously things will then need to evolve more from day one. Not everything will change on day one. There's sort of cultural changes and the way we want to change things to get into that different way of working that we need to continue to sort of press on.
Yeah, sure. So I suppose I'll put on my currently chair of board of NCC Commercial Services, and Councillor Davis is also on that board. So, you know, mammoth amount of work's gone into this in order to get this up and running and ready to roll on January the 1st. I'm looking forward to being in the Civic Centre on New Year's Eve to sign off a series of bits of paper on behalf of the board to make sure that it actually got built in a different trade. Some really good work with some of the staff in Newport North, I should have had, around how that looks. Tracy's absolutely right. You know, this will be a wholly owned venture on January the 1st. You know, so we now get to make this the commercial entity that we want it to be from that point. So, so really exciting, terrifying, but really exciting. You know, opportunities and prospects for us as an organisation, and to look at the things that we might want to deliver in a more commercial way going forward as well. So, as Tracy said, it's NCC Commercial Services trading in Cynghorydd. That enables us the flexibility to actually look at other trading arrangements as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's safe to say that nothing's going to stop on the 1st of January. There's going to be a phased approach to how this is introduced. There'll be any redundancies and all the money. They're not going to get paid at the end of January or February. So at the moment, the name changes, the new company opens, and then we'll see the change month after month or within what time frame would we expect it all to be rolled out?
I think so the nuts and bolts how it operates, and you know. We've got an SLA with, we're going to Kevin now because Kevin runs HR and payroll. We've got an SLA with our payroll to run payroll for the new entity, so everybody's going to carry on getting paid. There's not going to be any issues around that. Everybody wants to be in the new entity, is going to be in the new entity. As it currently stands, we consulted with staff on the structures at the moment. That consultation process started, I want to say, about a month ago, through a series of group meetings and then informal discussions post that. So with staff there and trade unions, we're working through that. There will be a bit of a pause in planned work between the 5th of December and the 1st of January, purely so that we haven't got work that's underway over that period of time and rolls into the new entity. It just makes life simpler. Emergency work will continue doing that period of time. So if there's an issue on one of our sites, then that won't be a problem. So what we've got then is probably about 18 months of really digging into the organisation, the way it operates, what it delivers, how it delivers that, in order to make sure it's the entity we want. We said this when we went through the scrutiny review process on it. It was a thing of its time, the joint venture. There were a series of these joint ventures set up across the UK. It did what it was planned to do. It returned a rebate to the council every year, over and above what it said it was going to do, and that rebate has been ploughed into other services. You can't forget that money has come back into Newport for us to invest in services across the piece. So, would council have made the same decision now? Probably not, because the world has changed. But actually, it is an opportunity for us.
And there was a budget set aside for this work.
Yeah.
Are we on budget with that? Are we gone over budget?
On budget,
Yeah.
we'll come in slightly under the budget, I think. And what cabinet has previously agreed is a facility, because obviously it needs cash flow as an entity, so it's a facility for loans. So that's in the previous cabinet paper. And this one-off investment, which is chargeable against the company as well. Yeah. So we'll look at it. What we don't want to do is put undue pressure on that as a commercial entity in day one, but over the next 3 to 5 years we'll look to recover the investment the council's made.
Okay.
Chair,
Yeah.
just to come back, and it's the end of the year, and it's also probably vulnerable times for assets with the weather, the conditions. Is there anything in place, or will we still have the same contractors on board?
Yeah.
If indeed there was any emergency repairs for schools or any of that buildings? So there's not going to be a stop to that. That's just going to carry on as.
Yeah. Or the only thing there'll be, as I said, if not a lot happens from about the 18th of December until the end of the first week of January. Anyway, there'll be a couple of weeks pause within planned work, just so we can, we can set up fresh and start again. But we know impact on emergency provision.
I guess I wouldn't want the implication to be that nothing will change from the 1st of January though. There is a new board, there is a new setup, there is a new management structure, that wholly new policies, all of it. It will take time for us to get to where we need to get to, but I wouldn't want there to be an implication that nothing's changed on day one. A lot has changed already and will continue to do so. That is what the council wanted, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think one of the significant changes is going to be probably the way our procurement policy and how we use that. For me, that's really exciting. I think that gives us greater autonomy and ability to function as we want, as local authority wants it to.
That's diplomatic. But you know, there's kind of education. I'm assuming when you've done the client kind of consultation, that the schools have been involved with this.
The schools absolutely be involved.
Schools,
that's a different. We wear different hats in different places. Yeah. So yes, the body have certainly been in contact with them, with head teachers about the changes.
What are the reporting lines and the lines are set for the council going forward? And so the LATCO will have its own leadership structure.
Yes.
And will there continue to be a board of which the council will have overall control? Is that the intention?
Yeah, absolutely. So the articles of association for the entity are in the public domain. They were part of the previous cabinet report. They've been written in a way to allow the company flexibility to make decisions it needs to be commercial, but the council retains in control. So the council, only the council can appoint people to the board. Only the council can agree with business plan. So which is a better situation than we've currently got. So, there's more Newport focus control on.
And is performance Will that go to partnerships? Or?
Just going to come in on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're looking at, we think the partnership scrutiny terms of reference needs to be amended slightly because it's a different model. It's not a partnership, but it is a partnership. So we're looking at the terms of reference, but the intention is that we put scrutiny annually. Probably partnerships is the most suitable place.
I'll summarise it: more control, more commercial, better for the taxpayer.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Just on that though, that's the concern on commercial. Is it going to be integrated into this? Is it going to be more community value? Which I think one of the things that NOS, I'm fully aware, have lacked during this. It's not the only thing they've lacked. I'm less diplomatic, but I'll be diplomatic. Yes.
I suppose what I would just say on that is, the couple of things. The current commercial model is based, what was expected of it isn't what really transpired. It does 99% of this trade with Newport City Council. We want it to be trading outside of Newport City Council because we want to maximise the value for the people in Newport for that entity. That's one. Two, I refer you to the report that Newport North did to the partnership scrutiny last week. Actually, they've got a really good track record of social value in these forms. They have, that and all that. So I think, that is certainly something we want to build for the entity. The problem is that it's a joint venture with an entity that is in Norwich. So, part of the value goes to Norwich. So what we're trying to do is maximise it.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Any other councillors on people policy and transformation?
It was just again, declaration of interest as I sit looking at what's on cases, and debtors. It was just that the engagement with Carvo in terms of developing capacity for the third sector organisations. Well, using Top HR as an example, I'm not sure if Carvo's involved so far with the transfer asset issue out there, but I don't think we've had any involvement from Carvo so far. So if they are to be engaged with in terms of accessing the third sector, could they be used as a case study and kind of offer our feedback as to where we're at the moment and what we plan to do, just because I know that this will be the only community centre or council asset that is probably going to be going down this route over the next few years.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that Gavo don't think we're involved, but probably wouldn't have been. So where we're looking to Gavo, Tockage have their own capacity and capabilities, don't they? A really experienced organisation, national organisation. Yeah. So we're looking at where there are local organisations who could undertake such a thing, but they need to develop a business plan, so, and they might need support in both capacity and capability terms, which doesn't mean they're not great organisations, by the way, but it's a specific thing. Yeah. So that's where we're looking at Gavo. There's some challenges there around resources, both within the council and at Gavo. We look at Tockage as a positive, hopefully, sort of rear-view mirror example. But also the council's processes and policies could be slicker as well. What is the right lease to offer such an organisation? What does that look like? And there aren't standards because we've reviewed that and researched that, but we could develop our own standards. And I think that's the piece of work we're committing to as well in that building. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, but I also hint of caution with community asset transfers. If the organisation is reliant on one or two people, or may retire or get ill, they quickly fall apart, and the council is always expected to then pick up the pieces, whoever's in charge. And by that point, it's very hard to pick up as a local authority to almost step in. The community wants to step in, but it's no longer our asset, and there's lots of problems with that. So it's appropriate, it's a good mechanism. I totally agree, our services have to be slicker if people want to go down that road, but equally we have to be mindful as an organisation that CATs aren't always the right option.
My personal preference is a partnership, whereby the council still have a stake within the building, the service that it provides. I mean, expecting a voluntary group of charity to take it on completely is unfair. It's a necessity if need be, that financially, if that's the only way that that building can stay open, then it is transferred and that's it. I agree, we shouldn't be transferring anything over this, we really have to. What we can do is work with voluntary groups that are already based there. And so a perfect example of that is what happened with Post. So again, because of austerity and a number of other different reasons, that they were cut adrift, and now they're really struggling. The infrastructure is really struggling, and they can't maintain that on their own. So they need that support from the local authority. They only Post, but they've got the money to improve it. And so again, if we're using different examples within the community, there are already examples that we can use to improve and make this better for everybody. Because along the line, I'm sure that we are going to see more community assets fall into a state of repair or again become non-existent, and then they're just not holding doing nothing. Each one was a perfect example.
We're just very fortunate. Again, declaration of interest. I'm not only I'm a committee member with Top H, but I'm also a trustee of Major Limited. So 2 asset transfers. But the point behind those, which Top H is still going through, the success is about the sustainability and the ability for those committees to actually manage themselves, be self-sufficient, and actually look to the long term. Because you take on the asset, it's that accountability to make sure it doesn't just serve the community, but it also, you're actually able to maintain it and do all the work that's expected to keep it open, keep it safe. It's a big ask, and as the leader pointed out, for some community groups that's a difficult, almost impossible ask because of that continuity and consistency. The lifespan of many charity volunteers is probably 10 years max, and you've got to think then that succession. And succession is probably the huge ask that most charities can't commit or find someone to actually take on and continue and sustain that role.
And I was going to make a very similar point actually to what Councillor Trudy made and Councillor Pym made, and I think from an assets perspective it is a good answer for some groups and some people, but I think we've got to be really careful that it's not the answer to everything and every property and every group that expresses an interest. As you say, a CAT isn't always the right arrangement for them, maybe a partnership, maybe there are arrangements we can look at across the country that have been done, because you're right, sometimes it can rise or fall with 1 or 2 people, and there is that succession planning element, and if you fall foul of that, what are you left with it can be a bit difficult to unpick sometimes. But I completely agree that it has been registered within the assets group as well, that it's not the answer to everything, absolutely.
Well, Alex will tell you on the way down here, it's not what he's Top H to good companions and repressurise the boiler, because it's broken at the moment. He's repressurising twice a day until we're in a position to be able to replace it. So there's constant challenges, for volunteers, and so I think that we tend to spend a lot of time on this on the chair.
That's okay. Councillor Hughes has got his hand up probably on the same point, so I'll let him.
Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, it's just to reassure, especially the comments made by Councillor Pims now, is that an awful lot of work is going on at the moment, really looking at how our relationships with those voluntary and external agencies are working, and up to this point certainly they've been quite productive and involving those agencies very much in how we deliver those plans in future. So I think there's an awful lot of work going on in that area. We're very aware of the issues, and I think most of them have been raised today. It's really around the sustainability of groups, and all groups have a lifespan to a point, and I think we're aware of that, and the external agencies are aware of that, and we are working together really to make sure that the way that we deliver those sort of facilities in future work for everybody. And I think that's the key of it, really. So we are doing some really strong work in that area at the moment, just to reassure.
Thanks, Councillor Hughes. Yeah, just a final point from you, really. And you talked about the model, Tracy, and how you kind of develop your own model for this type of work. It's ensuring your model's got some flexibility for each group. If you come out and say, we only do it this way or we only do it that way, that isn't going to work for everybody. And so it is about that flexibility in the model that sort of suits the partners that you're trying to work with. Yeah. Okay.
Just who came up with the name?
Sorry?
Who came up with the name? Who's that?
a joint decision or?
Because,
Sorry, for the replacement consent.
There were a range of options that went to a range of people, but Emma Colton was involved from a comms point of view particularly, but a whole range of us involved. Yeah.
Oh, that was just curious.
Any other questions for people, policy and transformation? Councillor Screen, sorry, you did have your hand up, apologies.
Thank you, Chair. I couldn't find the raise hand app or whatever it is. I just want to say, I'm looking at the case study on recruitment activity. You know, it's a pleasure to read. You know, and I commend really the way in which you're engaging with and involving, you know, schools, colleges, and universities. You know, I think that's really good, and particularly the internship program with the University of South Wales. You know, as someone who worked in higher education for many years, I know how important it is for undergraduates to get some work experience, you know, so they can see what work is available, what happens, and it's good for their CVs as well. So I'm very pleased to see that, and also just commend the you know, supporting veterans and service leavers as well, which I think is really good, and it's something that you know, needs to be commended. So yeah, thank you, Chair. That's it.
Thanks, Councillor Screen. Any other questions from any? Councillor Bright?
Well, not a question really, but no one's mentioned it yet. You mentioned in the pre-meeting that the quiz reports really well presented, and we will comment on how great. But it was really hard to scrutinise, and it's not a tick-box exercise, but the stuff that's been going on should be commended, and that's been noted, Chair, so I just want to push that one really. And just also a comment in relation to AI. In fact, we are pressing forward, and then we see a little soundbite saying, was it, don't want to leave the next generation behind. In fact, we are working towards AI. But just on the back of that, then it suddenly occurred to me in work that we've now been told the cost associated with AI and emails. So now we've been advised to delete all emails over 2 years old, and associated cost of actual data storage. So just wondering how we're addressing that maybe.
Okay, thanks. So, can I?
You go and I'll answer as well.
Sorry. So yeah, obviously AI. We've got to get on board with that, haven't we? The opportunities that are there. I think there is some research about AI taking up more data center space and you know, some anti-green kind of stuff around that. But it exists whether we use it or not. We really must. Email storage is relatively low cost compared to other things, compared to big systems, and in fact compared to AI, because that's a moving thing, and emails are generally slimmer. But what we do see now is emails proliferating more and more, so they go to more people, don't they? And then they're stored 7 times instead of 1, and so on and so on. We've got some quite sophisticated archive tools with our part of the SRS, because we've always got to think of the complying. I think it's 7 years plus the current. So we've got to comply with that as well. What if we needed that for FOI or central access requests and so on? And in some services it's a lot longer. So we work with quite strict retention policies that we stick to. So I think that's manageable and lower cost. But there are costs associated with AI for sure for the tech. But we hope that the costs reap the rewards that come with that, obviously. Did you want to?
Well, yeah, it's cloud storage is the cost. I speak to Sean about that. You know, I'm shocked by emails because, as Tracy says, and Sean might back up, they wouldn't be our biggest concern. For example, we're looking at the national digital twinning program. The data sets there to twin the city digitally will be serious cloud storage costs. So we have to be very clear about what we're storing, what we put on the twin, and why. Like, is there a real business case? Does it benefit people and the taxpayers? But emails, I haven't come across. I would imagine that cost to be huge.
No, as I say, it's based on something.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And just on AI and automation kind of is in there, but coming soon. I think we're 3 weeks off getting, we need to form a policy around that. We need to really formalise our approach. So there's a cabinet member report with the leader just about to go in to formalise some of our advice and guidance on that work as well, which will be another big step for us.
Okay, Chair.
No, it was just item 3, which is the action was to engage and contribute to key partnership projects that build positive and providing messages and communications across the city. I've started to notice an improvement in the way that NCC communicate with the public, understand the challenge and negativity, which I think is needed, and we've discussed it previously at Scrutiny, the importance of clamping down on misinformation and just general negativity across the city. And I'd just like to thank the work that Cabinet Member Emma Cole has spent in this area. Again, very polite, but but also engaging. Just giving a call online, making it feel personal when you're commenting and replying. And I think it is needed, and I think a lot more people now are kind of thinking about it before they post, but also looking at what is being posted around the city, the positive stuff like the food festival. You saw it the weekend just passed. The numbers have turned up at the city centre. They've gone. I'd like to think that the majority of them have got away with a positive experience. The next time they read these comments online, then they're seeing the kind of they come back from NCC challenging, not just misinformation, but just negativity for the sake of negativity. Hopefully, it will start kind of creating a positivity across the city and the things that we're trying to do. So yeah, so well done.
Thanks, Matt. But the real thanks goes to the team who I know work really, really, really hard. And they're not a big team. We run very light on numbers, as I often moan to the leader, but we do, and they're a great team. So the real thanks goes to them because they're really working and they've really embraced the strategy that I've brought to them. Yeah, thanks.
Just add to that, Chair, Councillor's point, to thank Councillor Snell Coulson. She is actually understanding herself for the culture shift she's made. To the team as well, who've done a great job. But building on Councillor Pym's point, is one of the things I've been keen on since becoming leader is the negative voice has been too dominant in the city for too long. And taking it away from all the party political nonsense, this city's being held back by those voices. And we all want Newport to do well. Yeah. We all want it to succeed. Does that mean everything's going fantastic? No. Does that mean we have to address those issues? Absolutely. But if anyone thinks that negativity solves problems, I think they're delusional. And I've never met, say, a successful person who's been in a negative mindset. Never met them. So unless someone else has met them, positive mindsets, not naive, but positive mindsets is the way forward from the city to realise its potential. Because if we don't, Carl from Bristol will just zoom on along, living off their reputations, and your boss stays behind them. No one wants to see that, Chair.
And can I just add to that? Sorry, Chair, just to say, all of us acknowledge there are things to deal with, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't celebrate the positives. And there are so many positives across the city right now. There's so many great things happening. And I think that's really important that we keep that perspective. And the positive things probably do definitely outweigh the negative things. And we should be shouting about it. We should be proud of it because everyone is working so hard. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, we did the comms review recently, didn't we? And the comments you just made, Councillor, echo some of that stuff that came out in the comms review as well. There's certainly been a shift in sort of challenging that. I know there's some training coming up, organised by the WLGA for sort of challenging misinformation for councillors as well. It's something we talked about in councillors' roles in that sort of publicly as well. So publicly and we made a number of recommendations in the communications order, which hopefully sort of particularly around resource as well, which I know that will help Councillor Courtney in the challenge for leaders. So, okay. Any other questions from members in this area? Could I just pick up a couple? Page 23 on the report numbers on the left-hand side. It's a bit sort of obscured by the writing in the table. The performance measures.
Yeah.
Are those corporate measures rather than your department? I think that's the whole council, isn't it?
Yeah. They are, but we're responsible for them. So
Yeah, yeah.
So yes, the performance figures relate to the whole council.
Yeah.
But we, PPT, are responsible for that performance.
Yeah, no,
yes.
I get that.
It doesn't just relate to our staff.
Because then some of your performance is a bit further down. So, for example, the percentage of managers undertaking regular bi-monthly check-ins
Yes.
is 71% on organisationally, but I think about 90-ish on your department.
Thanks for noticing that.
That's okay. So some of the other areas, service areas, don't perform as well. We unpick some of that, and I'm sure it'll come up later in the agenda for some of those other service areas. Is 70% still the right target for the local authority? I know that we were at 30-odd% a few years ago and performing really poorly, and this committee were keen to sort of stress the importance of that, and we've seen such a big improvement in organisations. Should we be stretching that target beyond the 70% that we're currently achieving would be my push or challenge, if you like.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, we do recognise, I'll pass to Kevin now, but we do recognise that it's more difficult for some services than others. But it's a challenge for everyone. Everyone's got to make a time. But it is more challenging, for example, where people don't have access to the IT or they're not desk-based and they can't do an online meeting or whatever. So we do recognise that, and there probably needs to be some variance within that. But we also probably, from a staff engagement point of view, it's really important. From a performance point of view, it's really important. So we possibly do need to look at the target. Kevin, did you want to answer that?
Yeah, only that, as you said, come from 32%, I think it was, to 50 to 70, and then, so we've come a long way, I think. And we've put some policy changes in place as of this September. They've been rolled out, and that training development is there. If you saw those inputs, I think, but those changes weren't just really being sent out to the organisation. So yeah, I think we possibly could review that. I think you'll never get 100% because there's maternity, there's absence partway through the month that impacts the figure and different things. But yeah, probably is time to review when we've got to that level.
Fab, okay. The one with the query, and I forgot my notes, sorry. It was something that one of the other councillors raised, and I think the stuff on page 27 of the report, which is about complaints, compliments and comments, is that also an organisational data set, or is that a department data set?
That is a department data.
I thought it was.
But
okay.
The data in the long PI, which relates to the longest and so on, is the whole organisation. Because again, we have our own complaints.
Yeah.
Few, but we're not perfect facing usually. And then we're also responsible for the whole organisation.
In terms of the sort of data that we get, because complaints has been quite a new thing. I think we've had it probably for 12 months now, perhaps within the report. It'd be useful to perhaps try and look at the next stage of that as we move forward and actually understand some of the categories of the complaints. So is this about poor service level, a lack of response, no response? I'm sure that you categorise those a bit more sort of under that data rather than just number. So perhaps the committee can get a feel moving forward for, is this about expectation, or is this about poor service delivery, or other things, and what sort of driving that, or is it about misinformation perhaps?
Yeah. So. It made me think as well, we've got to be careful about doubling it, but there's a really good detailed report that goes to the Governance and Audit Committees in their terms at the 6 monthly point and also at the full year point, but it might just be worth some cross-referencing to say there's more data available here.
Yeah, definitely, yeah, if that's there, yeah.
So that could be a way to go, because the different services, particularly those with lots of complaints where the data means a bit more, there's really useful information in there which also goes to Cabinet and through to Dimitri's Cabinet member. So maybe we could just do some cross-referencing.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. That was it for me. Any other questions for anybody else? Okay, thank you everybody in the people policy transformation. Also, can I just say for you, it's really great to see the commitment from all the cabinet members to
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, we do need to wrap up comments and recommendations.
Sorry, just
My fault.
Sorry, just Councillor Pym's comment about the asset transfer. After recommend considering partnership models as an alternative where appropriate and reviewing examples across councils to identify best practice. Committee praise the improvements in communication and engagement, highlighting the developments in the city, such as the food festival. Councillor Screen's comment about effective engagement with schools and universities, and your comment here about the possibly looking into the types of complaints which have been made, so possibly a cross-reference in reports from governance and audit. Apart from those, was there any other comments or recommendations that the committee would like to make?
So we've got the target for staff check-ins.
I guess there's more a comment than an action. There's a lot of questions about the Norse JVs. There might be something about noting that the new organisation will report to partnership scrutiny.
We could live stream race on New Year's Day.
That was getting a lot more of the questions on that.
Yes, definitely, yeah. Fantastic. Thanks everyone. Yeah.
So, complaints question, I was going to ask this one, but that's the same answer.
Yeah, I asked it because that team are responsible for kind of bringing all the complaints together. So yeah. Yeah, fantastic.
Afternoon, Chair.
How are we doing? Okay. Thanks for joining us. Councillor Matthew Pym's just gone to the new role, but we'll make it start with that and then you can join as we go if that's okay. Cabinet member for this one?
Cabinet members are Councillor Coulson and Councillor Dan. Councillor Dan says apologies.
No problem. Councillor Coulson's online, so that's okay. So, Reece, I don't suppose you want to say anything more than you did earlier, so straight over to you then, Mike, if you'd like to introduce your report.
Yeah, thanks. So hopefully the committee's had the opportunity to review it. It's a year of decent progress in embedding some of the embedding the objectives that we've tried to, or that we've set out. As you'll see, there's quite a bit of green in there. There are a number of objectives as well that we've got programmed in to work on, sort of going forward from the start of next year. So they will be started, if not before Christmas, then in Q4. You can see the dates there where those are planned in. I won't go through them individually unless you particularly need me to. I think if I deal with the reds and the ambers, obviously there's a red in there in terms of the review of the council's constitution. I think you were privy to this discussion, Chair, in the context. The aim now is to outsource that work. I need to go through a tendering exercise to do that. It's a big piece of work, a really, really big piece of work. So there needs to be a competitive tender for that. There'll need to be some scoping, there'll need to be some briefing. And obviously once we have got somebody in place to do that, it's going to take them a considerable amount of time to do that because we'll need to review them under the council's constitution. So I have put a long completion date on that. It's not a 5-minute job, but it is progressing, and I will be beginning to plan the tendering exercise probably during the early part of the period when we come back after Christmas. A couple of other bits, I suppose, of amber. If we go to the page, it's page 7. I've only got the report here, not the whole set of committee papers, but it's page 7 in the report. We've got an amber against the development of a website for the registration service. That's something that we need in order to capture feedback in order to market the services. I understand it's programmed in as part of the website redevelopment. We're trying to get some more information as to exactly where it's programmed in, so that uncertainty makes it amber rather than green. But subject to that, we should be able to start working on that next year and have it up and running, hopefully before the completion date. Then if we turn to the performance measures, there's just a couple in there that I need to deal with. The most concerning is the coroner's one, which is the percentage of new cases listed for inquest within 6 months of opening. And the first thing to note is if members of the committee look at the figures for 22, 23, 23, 24 and 24, 25, we've got 95.3, 94.24 and 96%. It then drops to mid-year 25, 26, 27.3%. There are a couple of reasons for that, which have coalesced together basically and created something of a problem. There was a change in the law last year requiring deaths to be referred to the statutory medical examiner, and it's now the statutory medical examiner which makes the determination as to whether the death is referred to the coroner. As it says in the commentary against that, that's resulted in an increased volume of cases. The other result of that has been that the cases that are coming through are more complicated. So, as I say, two issues that we're dealing with there. We have recruited 2 assistant coroners who are part-time coroners who sit on an ad hoc basis for at least, is it 20 days a year, Jane? Yeah. They sit for at least 20 days a year. There's been a bit of a delay getting them on board because we've been waiting for the training that they have to carry out, which is provided by the Ministry of Justice. They will be doing that next month. They will be online, we hope, in January, and that will help to start ease the backlog. So I would expect to see an improvement in that figure the next time I sit here. Obviously, there's some way to go to get it back to the outstanding figures that it was at previously, but that is pretty out of our control, and we are sort of working retroactively to try to sort that out. The other one on there, which is amber, and it's not nearly such a significant issue, but it's the percentage of registration services customers see within 10 minutes. The slight dip in, I mean, the dip in performance is nothing like the one that I was just talking about, but the slight dip in performance is down to the fact that the service has been using a new software package which is provided by the General Register Office. It's government software. We've been on the pilot of it. We need to be on that pilot because the thing is going to get rolled out nationally. So there would be no advantage to not doing that, but there have been significant technical issues which we've been liaising with SRS on, and SRS in turn have actually got back to the government software provider now and become quite firm with them. So we're hoping to start seeing some traction on that. But as you can imagine, with those sorts of communications, matters don't get resolved overnight. What we have done as an interim measure to make sure that customers aren't waiting for too long is to increase the length of appointment times from 10 to 15 minutes. So that gives customers a more realistic idea of when they need to turn up and allow staff to deal with them within that allotted time. The only other one, and just to finish on a more positive note, the other one I wanted to flag up is the final measure in the performance table, which is the percentage of council meeting minutes published within 14 days of the date of the meeting. Firstly, just to say there is an error in that line. The actual figures for 22, 23, 23, 24, 91.3 and 97.4%, they actually belong in the line above and should be against percentage of births registered with Newport City Council within 42 days. And for that percentage of council meeting minutes, it should be no data from 22 to 24. So just to clarify that, but I know the committee had some questions about this last time they reviewed the matter. We've got an actual figure for 24-25 of 56.9%. And I said 6 months ago that this was on an upward trajectory. The culmination of that upward trajectory is now on 76.1% against a target of 75. So that's got to where it needs to be now. And I've given my thanks to the Democratic Services team for delivering on that, because that's a decent improvement in my view. So just to flag that on a positive note to finish up. Obviously, I won't go through the rest of it. Those are the key parts that I wanted to draw to the committee's attention, and I'm sure you'll have some questions for us.
Fantastic, thank you, Mike. Over to the committee, any questions?
First of all, notice that the head count stayed pretty steady throughout the year, and also sicknesses decreasing, so congratulations on creating a very happy and healthy department. In terms of the rest of it, I think you've already addressed the concerns and been quite honest with your assessment, Mike, so probably nothing.
Any other questions? Councillor Screen?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just more an observation, really. Looking at the workforce demographics, it's interesting to note the turnover rate fell quite a bit between March and September. I'm just wondering, is there a reason for that?
Not particularly. I mean, as was identified last time we discussed this, it's a pretty low head count in that department, meaning the movement of 1 or 2 members of staff could affect the proportion quite dramatically. I wouldn't say there have been any material factors which have resulted in that. I mean, people leave roles for a variety of reasons. It just so happens that fewer have in the 6 months to September 25. But I would be, as I say, I would be cautious about interpreting that graph as a wild variation, because the numbers of staff you're talking about, you don't need many to have quite a big impact on the percentages. Councillor Screen.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I mean, and any drop in turnover is to be welcomed. Okay, thanks very much.
Councillor Pym?
Yeah, Mike, we did touch on the 27% increase in the coroner's inquests. Is that, have we just had a bad year, or is just, I know you went through it, just a little bit more information? Is that because we're experiencing more issues, or is there like a staff, or a combination of both?
The number of staff's actually increased. The issue is almost purely the legislative change, which has completely and fundamentally changed how instructions are referred to the coroner. So they're now, as I say, coming in through the statutory medical examiner, which as I say is getting more cases referred, and the cases that they're referring tend to be more complex, because that medical professional is looking at it. They're identifying the medical issue which perhaps might not have got identified previously, and then the coroner and her team are having to go and dig into that. So not only have we got more cases coming in, but we've also got to spend time or more time delving into them and getting to the bottom of them. So it really is a double hit.
Is there a time frame as to when something like a case can be referred to the coroner? Are we exposed or open to any historical cases of neglect or accident incident that may come up, or they get referred to as and when they're investigated?
I don't think we're exposed in the sense of there have been any cases in the system that have been there for so long that we're going to have a problem with them. I mean, there are other authorities which have been heavily criticised because they've been taking years and years to get cases through. We're not in that category. We're beyond 6 months in some cases, but we're not on years and years and years. So there's no question of any negligence. The 6 months is a figure that the chief coroner stipulates is what they would ideally like to see new cases being listed within, and we transpose that into our KPIs. And as I say, the fact of the matter is, because of these external factors, we cannot hit it. I mean, I think if you look at it purely on the statistics, I mean, 95, 94, 96, and then a steep drop down to 27. You know, that to me, that's not a department on the slide. That's not kind of insidious underperformance. That's going fine, something's happened.
Yeah, just the concern would be if we're training up to assistant coroners, whether they would be thrown in the deep end at the time that they're ready to start taking on this responsibility.
I don't know about the deep end. I mean, you know, they will be experienced legal professionals who will have had the training that they need in order to hear these cases. I mean, I anticipate that the senior and the area coroner will continue to do the more complex pieces of work, but I don't think at that level the deep end is quite so much a thing, because you're talking about a very high level professional going into that role. Do you want to add anything, Jane? So you're closer to some of this.
I think the balance to say that actually the increase in inquest opening is to a certain extent the success of the statutory medical examiner in identifying those cases and making sure that they do come to the coroner. So we have opened more inquests, and those inquests will take more time. So if it's a complex medical case, the investigation will take more time. The actual time in court will take more time as well. There's likely to be legal representatives who will ask more questions. So when we're looking at listing, we're listing that case for a longer amount of time, which means that there are fewer time slots, if you like, that we can list into. When the assistants come in, they will start with the simpler cases as they build their experience, and then move on to complex cases when they're ready, with the support from the senior coroner and the area coroner. So I don't think there's any fear of them being dropped in the deep end.
In terms of the sort of change along the impact of the staffing medical examiners, that's something that other coroner services are seeing the same thing. So we're seeing sort of big drops the same. So this isn't a new problem. This is a kind of countrywide legislation problem. Yeah. Okay.
The chief coroner has spoken to that you know, the National University is more interested, so it can be more complex.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And in terms of the funding model that we have, is that based on the number of cases then? So because we get contribution from other local authorities to run the service, if the workload's increasing and the resource levels increasing, do they sort of pay per case, or is that an overall service cost that we share? What I'm getting at is Newport picking a bill up now for what other local authorities will be contributing for?
No, so the service. So just for the benefit of any members of the public watching, the service is hosted by this council on behalf of the 5 Gwent authorities, so Cyllid, Blwyddyn, and Monmouthshire. The cost of that service, there's a budget for that service, and that's recharged to each of those 5 authorities based on a percentage share. I think Newport pays something like 25%, I think Cyllid pays something like 33%, and then Blwyddyn, Monmouthshire, and Blwyddyn less than that. So the percentage calculation is based on the head count of each participant authority. It's not on a per case basis, it's based on the overall cost of delivering the service divided out according to that formula. If the service needed more resource, that's something that we would have to agree with the local authorities. So as a result of their contribution going up.
And does that happen then with bringing in the two assistant columnists, so they've agreed to support that cost as well? We're not picking that up.
That's right. Yeah, I mean we also recruited a senior coroner's officer this year to lead the team of coroner's officers. So that would have gone into the budget at the start of 25 now. So that would have gone into the budget at the start, well, before the start of the 25-26 financial year.
Yeah.
What we're looking at now is starting to prepare the budget for the 26-27 financial year, and the conversations that we need to have elsewhere as part of that.
So those new posts we brought in assistant coroners halfway through the year, we'll be able to claim that money back even though we gave the budget at the start of the year.
Yeah, the budgeted for at the start of the year.
So we knew that was likely to happen.
Yeah, yeah. And as I mentioned, we recruited them some time ago, so they've been with us for a while, but they've been waiting for the mandatory training that they have to do. So yeah, they were actually recruiting quite a bit earlier this year.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Just regards to the new ceremonies manager, is that a new post or is that a replacement post?
That's a new post created by reorganising the manpower spreadsheet. So where James had some vacancies, she's amalgamated those vacancies to create enough funding to create that position. So it's not in addition to, it's
new post within budget.
Yeah, it's within budget.
Yeah. Was there a strategy within that to kind of increase the, and then if I can't force people yet, but certainly take on and promote ceremonies within the city?
Yes, there's no strategy to force anybody to get married, but we are hoping that we'll increase our ceremony stage.
And will that tie in with more opportunities within the city, within the council buildings, or any of our assets that we could be promoting by the services to generate income? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that is part of the wider strategy.
Yeah, there's two aspects to it. So there's the use of the facility at the Mansion House, and that as a wedding venue. I mean, most weddings are held there. So there's obviously the income from using the Mansion House as a wedding venue. There's also income from registrars going out to all the venues in the city to perform weddings. So the key part of this new role is business development and driving income within that service. So the expectation is that individual will be working with Jane and I to promote those two lines.
Any other questions for Laura Standards?
Yes, Chair, sorry, I got my hand up.
Oh, sorry, couldn't see that, Councillor Linton. Let Councillor Bright come in first and then I'll call you.
Okay. Hello.
Well, just should be noted again, in the pre-committee meeting, we come to the report and said, how good it was and the praise should be given to, or should be recognised. That's how great you're doing, really. And you've clearly addressed the things we've got to raise. And yeah, so well done.
Councillor Linton.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. I'm looking at the mid-term financial plan. Is it okay to bring that in at the minute?
That's on page 47 of our report.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's regarding the council's position in the proposal for getting rid of the one car, the mayoral and leader's car. From experience, I know that for civic, a lot of mayoral sport duties, you need a car, and often the leader as well, going away on a separate meeting or whatever, they normally have their own car as well. What happens on sometimes if they got to go together? Are they going to be wanting to car share, or what's the logic? And how is the leader going to get to his meeting and the mayor gonna have to get to their meeting.
Well, it was
You're only gonna have the one car, right?
it was agreed quite some time ago, more probably well over a year ago, Councillor Linton. It was agreed that we would go down from 2 cars to 1. The current leader himself agreed to that, and in fact, I think it was the current leader who suggested getting rid of the leader's car. It works pretty well in the main. We've got 1 car that's used by the mayor. If it's not being used by the mayor, it is on occasion used by the leader when he needs to get to and from events. But these are expensive assets, Councillor Linton. I think the current mayor's car is costing the council £23 a day, and then you've obviously got the resource to drive it as well and service it and do everything else that you need to do with it. And I mean, it's for members to make decisions ultimately about resources, but I would say it's very expensive to have a car sitting around just in case it's needed. And in our experience, as I say, because the leader's car went around a year ago, there haven't been any significant logistical problems as a result of that. So I think I would say that the change has been vindicated.
Okay, thank you. Cheers. Thank you.
Just for the record, it was an independent proposal of the council meeting to get rid of the second leader's car, which was later followed through. So just to make the point. There we go. So I'm fully supportive of that. Any other questions for oral standards?
Councillor just ran complaints. Can you give any more details around the type of complaints that you received in the area?
Not off the top of my head, being completely honest with you.
We did talk in the previous service area, because they're responsible corporately for complaints, about how we might perhaps drill down now a bit more information into these. And Tracy did say that there's a report that goes off to governance and audit, which provides a bit more detail. So we might be able to tie that in rather than duplicate sort of work. Complaints has been quite a new thing that's come to the scrutiny committee as data, so it's the opportunity next is to perhaps unpick some of them, and maybe for your department it might be that you would sort of list them by, you know, are they the percentage to the coroner's office, percentage to the registrar's office, or whatever that might be, and we sort of get a bit more data about where they go to and sort of pick some of what they are, whether they're related to service or timescales.
Yeah, I mean, I do have had discussions with at least 2 of the service managers about complaints over the last 12 months and assisted in resolving them, but without having that information in front of me, I don't think I'd be adding any value.
Yeah, no, that's fine. No need to speculate there. But for future meetings, perhaps we can sort of look at the data. Fab, I just had one question, if that's okay. Despite Councillor Bright saying it was an excellent report, my only area of concern on the report would be your department's poor performance on bi-monthly check-ins. In comparison to, I mean, it's under the organisational target, and given that your service area is quite small, as you alluded to in terms of staff numbers earlier, and that, you know, it's not a challenging area where your teams haven't got access to the technology to carry this out, we'd expect to see a much better performance, I think, in checking in with staff than the figures that you've got at the moment.
I think we can know the committee's comments on that and see what we can do.
Fab. Any other questions from the committee? No. Fantastic. Just your summary vote recommendations, if that's all right.
Just your last comment about the bi-monthly check-ins, and also about the complaints, the types of complaints which are coming through. We have within the first service area, or would you like to note this down for this one as well?
I think let's leave it in the first service area for Tracy, because I know Tracy's team sort of bring these reports all together, so is that okay? Yeah, I think that would be sensible.
It's okay to trigger on Tracy's still in the room. I think Tracy made the point about Tracy's service area kind of all these things together. With anyway, that's probably something we'll do across the piece.
Yeah,
I think case studies in it's probably worth a bit more data and compliments as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think you need to see where the complaint's gone to. You need to see how it was disclosed on the
Was there any comments or recommendations that you want to make?
No, I think that was it. Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you very much. I suppose I told you it was the coldest room in the city. What they do is when just before Mike comes in, he goes in and turns the heat in, everything gets all cold. So we just want to go. That's what I told you. Thanks, everyone. I think if we can, yeah, and then if it does come a bit earlier. So we told the next service area to arrive, I think, 20 past 3:30, I believe. So we have got a bit of break. So if everybody wants to have a break for at least 5 minutes, and then we'll review where they are. Do we want to turn off? Or we just leave it live? Yeah, fine. Okay. We'll be back about sort of 16, 17 minutes past for those people online then. While we find some jokes. quite far away from the screen, so I'm trying to read the names of them.
Yeah.
We're that's just a legacy one, isn't it? Can you hear us online?
Yeah. Yes, fine.
Yeah, okay, fine.
Fab. Okay, we are going to resume then the last service area of the day. So the other service area went through quite quickly, so thanks for sort of making yourself available a bit quicker than we anticipated, given your keenness to work through a Welsh Government settlement that's come through this morning for you. So thank you very much. So I'll hand over straight to you, Myron, if that's okay, to give a brief overview and then over to the committee for any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So as we've said in the report, making some progress on our objectives. Obviously, one of the projects, customer services, making less progress there than we would have liked to have done, but you've had a separate briefing on that and a separate session that one. So I'm hoping that, you know, that's all understood. But, you know, we have to take the action to move that on. And our PIs, we're probably showing a few more reds and ambers than we would normally do in kind of finance. And that is about, you know, and that's all kind of related to our customer services area in the main. So that's something that we need to focus on or carry on focusing on. So that's been a bit more of a slippage. Sickness has been an issue, continues to be an issue, especially in customer services. Service managers only just come back herself from a long bout of sickness, unfortunately. So all those things are not kind of helping in this respect. Our sickness levels are better than they were 6 months ago, 12 months ago. There's no doubt about that, but it is still higher than historical norms for us in finance, really. And that's a continued kind of concern. But we're making progress on the objectives, and you know, we are taking action to try and get back on track and on the customer services one in particular. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Mario. Yeah, I will open to the committee now for questions. I mean, we did the customer services review 2 weeks ago, I think. So, you know, hopefully the committee will dwell on that, and you know, we sort of seen all the figures with the sort of movement of the timelines and completion dates and everything. So I don't propose that we spend, you know, any time going over the same old ground as the last meeting. But aside from that, open to the committee for questions, really.
Yes, yeah. Just on sickness, Myron. What types of sickness? Is it like work related?
So
you don't have to avoid the
no. I mean, the nature of the work in finance is that it's office-based work. So most of our sickness, we have a lot of long-term sickness. We've suffered a fair bit with that. We've still got a high level of short-term stuff as well, but in particular, our stats have been affected in the last 12 months by maybe half a dozen or so, across the area, kind of long-term issues, either planned surgical procedures, or we've had, you know, stress as well, but a mixture of stuff really. And you know, you manage those things very differently, of course.
Yeah, obviously, like stuff like surgery, you can help.
Yeah.
But anything work related, have we got anything set up to help to encourage?
Well, the council has got its established procedures and processes for sort of supporting staff, either through the helpline or through its kind of attendance at work kind of policy. You know, we are generally, as an organisation and in finance, supportive. You know, the focus is to get people back to work well, and, you know, as soon as we can. So all that is being done. we have a reasonably high number of well-being check-ins within the service, and those are quite specific to supporting people who've just come back from a bout of sickness leave. So you'd expect us to have a reasonably high number of those, and we do. So I'm, satisfied that that all that makes sense, and that we're doing what we need to be doing. But I'll be really clear about it. We do need to do something, some specific action on customer services in particular, because that is a continuing worrying area, and we need to think differently about what we do there. I haven't got any answers yet on that, but it's a focus now that we've got the service manager back herself. It's an area that I've asked that we work with HR colleagues with, etc., to try and get to the underlying issues. Really, it is a fairly pressurised, department, because you can imagine working in the contact centre. One call finishes, the other one's on, as it were, and there is possibly less flexibility there with leave and stuff, because we have minimum numbers that we try and have, etc. So it is a different beast, really. So that's an area, but we need to look into it, because we really do need to move that issue. I don't know if Karen or colleagues have got.
Could we offer more staff, and bring in more staff? Offer more breaks and holidays and stuff.
Well, I mean, obviously it's the financial restraints in doing that. So that is a problem, isn't it? And obviously we do try and maintain service and maintain each one of the PIs that we do struggle to meet as well. So they'll be mindful of that. In time, of course, we're hoping to have less calls, less contact, because there'll be more people going on to the self-service, and the website will be that much better, and our self-service processes, online forms will be that much better, but we have less people wanting to call. So it should, if that project kicks in, it should itself provide some answers to that challenge as well in itself. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I suppose just to say more broadly across the organisation. So we went, after doing quite a lot of analysis of the data, we went to a wellness and work policy a number of years ago now, which is more more support-based approach to it. Don't get me wrong, there's still triggers and still sanctions within it, but what we're trying to do is understand why people are and get them back into the workplace in a supported way as quickly as we possibly can. And I would overall say we think as an organisation stack up pretty well against other public sector bodies. They do. If you look at the single standards and the local authorities, we're pretty good in Newport. That's all against the backdrop. Newport also has the lowest number of staff per head of population in Wales by some margin. All right, so there's not a bit of this organisation where people aren't under the pump globally. So we have to be as supportive and as flexible as possible.
Okay, these are the one questions. That's okay. Chair, on observation. I can't imagine any department's got any staffing issue just to do with the lower the numbers are. But is there any flexibility within certain roles whereby somebody could take up training that they could fill in for a short period of time from one department to the other? Maybe not through choice, but if you're on the front line of customer service month after month, and you're having issues with staff shortages, that there's another department that you could have a break in for a month or two, and somebody else could fill in for you, just so you're not doing that all year round. It's a very challenging and skillful position. I know a few people who have worked in customer services, and it takes a special type of person to be able to put up with somebody nagging, shouting, complaining continually on the phone without the necessary tools or resolutions available to you. So if again we do it with seasonal staff in other departments, is there any any flexibility or opportunity that somebody could say, "Do you know what, I'll do it for a month or two."
I suspect, and I will look at them, but if I went to any of these three and said, I'm just going to take a couple of the kind of staff guys and then you want to go into customer services, first to do a 2 to 3 month training, which is what it takes, and then a few months there, I suspect I'd be lynched. But yeah, I think most of my areas in finance are actually undergoing a lot of, workflow issues. As Lisa said, we're not the most resource heavy authority in finances. Is no difference. We do that in customer services between the contact centre staff and sometimes the operations staff, who are the kind of the IT, the MCS IT bots, and we do often, because the transition from one to the other is often a little bit easier because you're in that customer services world, albeit in different parts of it, and we do sometimes kind of work a little bit there. We did transfer council tax funds from the customer service contact centre into effectively a contact centre within the revenue entity. And actually, you can say to me about, I would imagine we can scale up and down there because you have a cohort of staff that could do. We do get ups and downs in our calls there, depending on various courts procedures, etc. So we do it where we can, but there is some.
It's probably wishful thinking, but on that, that is really interesting. Because my time as a councillor, with every kind of department I dealt with, you find it soon enough. They appear to be understaffed for different reasons, really kind of lower numbers. And that seems to be kind of the bottleneck, is there's so many problems reoccurring and not getting resolved. Oh, is it our remit as a scrutiny committee to kind of take it forward that maybe some departments need more staff and something we should be looking in the future for with regards to the budgets? Because if that is a reoccurring issue or problem, I raised it planning the other day. Well, fastest growing local authority within Wales. But are we getting any additional funding to create more staff positions or to fill positions that we've lost over the years? We keep up with that workload, and maybe that's the case we need to be putting forward to the Welsh Senate, that we need more staff and we need more money for more staff.
I think our remit goes as far as making a recommendation to Cabinet that they consider the resource within the team. We've done that. We did it in the comms review last time. There was some question mark about those temporary resources and permanent resources for the customer services, and we made a recommendation that the Cabinet members should, I can't remember what the wording was, but look at the resource and make sure the resource is up. So we can make those recommendations. Ultimately, the decision rests with the Cabinet, and they've got to view that in the round in light of the budget, haven't they? I mean, probably a couple of different schools of thought in terms of budget. We have had the draft settlement today. We've had the biggest settlement of any local authority in Wales in terms of percentage, because we're the biggest and fastest growing, we're the fastest growing local authority. Reality is it's never enough though, is it?
No, it needs to be a match of those seats, so we need people in positions doing these jobs, because it's a reoccurring theme with a lot of the departments. It's not got the staff.
As I said, the customer services improvements project should, in due course, start to have a positive impact on the contact that comes into the contact centre, because we know that where there is an online option for people to either get information or to request information or to request a service, it is often the way that is preferred. Not always, I agree with that, but often is. And that project should, in due course, start to open up and improve those options, as it were. So we are hoping that that is part of the answer, certainly for customer services.
And the challenges in terms of staffing and customer service, is that why we haven't met the target for answering the phones within 5 minutes max?
I think that's just a simple case of resources versus the demand, and therefore they take time to get to answer those calls. And that is something that we're hoping to improve via that just improvements project. But it really is as simple as saying those are the number of calls and the resources that we have means that the waiting times are the waiting times. We have improved matters a little bit by moving some of it into the revenues team. We've got their own kind of contact team there now. Still the same number, but if you push one wherever to go to revs and beds, you'll go to a team that is within the revs and beds department. And that has created some improvements for us.
Yeah. Go. I'll make a point first. So you might want to make the same one if that's okay. I think that sort of the council tax picking up their own phones within their own team. The bit that's missing from that data is those that are resolved first time as well, because I suspect there's a significantly more of those calls that are picked up by a dedicated council tax person that is resolving that inquiry first time and reducing the demand overall on people coming back through. So I would have thought that even though they're taking a long time to pick the phone up, once you get through to the right person in the council tax team, that you should see a lack of repeat calls, because when we looked at the data for the customer contact review, a number of these were repeat calls because you weren't resolving the first time. So maybe that's something we ought to try and think about capturing.
Well, when we, about 12 months ago, we were starting the discussions about whether the calls for council tax could be directed to the council tax team. One of the reasons why we were looking at that was the repeat call. Yeah. You know, and it would quite often, there would be a thread, you know, I've rung last week or emailed, and, you know, customers possibly felt that they were going around the system, if you like. And I think there's a misunderstanding in a way about the type of calls that we get, because so much of our contact is now directed to the internet, you know, for our website, rightly so. The majority is simple telephone calls. People can normally resolve themselves. They can find the form they need. They can find how to tell us about a change of address. They can do all that because it's really easily signposted now on our web pages. So that means that the calls that come through, by their very nature, tend to be the more complicated ones. Yeah. The ones where it's not falling neatly into one category or another. So yes, there's two problems, if you like: more complicated calls coming through to the council tax line, and then also the skill set of the person answering. And that's not to say customer services didn't know what they were doing. They did, and they are highly trained. But it's very difficult to have the level of specialism in council tax, for example, unless you're working in it, because there are just so many different exemptions and discounts and rules for lots of different things. And you need to really be working in that field to be able to offer the right advice at the right time to the customer. So having the calls directly dealt with in council tax means that the customer is actually speaking to an expert. Any of the people that take the call can resolve the call in probably more than 90% of the cases there and then. And so we took the decision early on is that to make this work, because we didn't get any additional, well, we had some additional resource for it, but we were also losing resource at the same time. So it was kind of like a balancing act between how are we going to do this. And we said, well, the only way it can work is if the majority of the calls that come through are resolved there and then with the customer on the phone. But at the same time, we have to be careful that people don't always ring us up because they know they're going to get things dealt with quicker because they come through on the phone. So it's a balancing act, and where people can, we direct them to the website, to the web forms that are there for them to use, and the majority of people do that. But when they do come through to the council tax team, they are speaking to somebody who really knows the system inside and out, and are able to, as I say, in over 90% of cases, resolve it there and then. Yeah. That's not to say it isn't without challenges, because we are a council tax team. It's not a dedicated telephone resource. Those staff are doing other things tomorrow. Today they'll be answering phone calls. So it's a case that we've got to make sure that we have enough resources doing
the other work that needs to be done, as well as the phones. And it's not easy to get that balance right. Some weeks our statistics are better than others in terms of call times. I mean, one week we had nearly 1,100 phone calls just into council tax. Now that's unprecedented. That was a busy week. Nothing particularly big had happened. We hadn't sent out thousands of bills extra, but it was just the demand. And I think the point I'm trying to illustrate there is that with the demand, it doesn't always follow patterns. It just might be this week everybody's decided they're going to sort out their council tax, and we've got to deal with that.
Yeah, recently we're going to come in. So
yeah, I suppose I think I've made this point here previously, but I'll do it again to complete this. There's the wait times on calls is a really blunt measure, because as Emma made the point there, the simple stuff can be resolved easily. You can go online and do it. It's not just this, that was the example of council tax, but you can do that for the majority of our services. You can go online, you can, anything simple you can do reasonably straightforward. The more people we have doing that, actually what we've got left, actually going into Central Library Museum to see somebody or phone step, are things that aren't easy to resolve. And it's an inevitability. You always get to a point where the wait times they're never going to get any less than that, because actually the resource we've got and the complexity of the issues we're dealing with are going to mean you're going to be spending more time on a cell phone trying to resolve those issues. So it's a really blunt measure. I think that point you made there around, well, actually, what's the proportion of these will resolve first time? I think that's probably a better measure.
Yeah, and it's something
if we spend 20 minutes on something with somebody and resolve the problem, that's a good measure of the effectiveness of it.
So we are now measuring the end of a phone call. The phone caller is invited to take part in a household society where you usually don't.
Yeah,
but actually the scores at the moment are really good. So it's not quite the question that you asked, but that would suggest that they've had their requirements met, even by the contact centre, where the operatives that are working there, their colleagues that are working there, have got a deal with a wide range of issues.
This is a way of life now, isn't it? That if you don't get anything resolved, you either do it yourself online and you've got to just wait an eternity.
Yeah.
Some national companies, the times there are probably better than most of the national utility companies.
I think they are.
It's quicker, and more often than not, when you do ring the council and customer service, you're speaking to somebody at the end. During the conversation, which you're not always going to get when you go in the magic roundabout with national companies. Right. But I was just wondering if we come in at that point as that if the amount of discourse and protest that we've seen across the country over the past 18 months, whether that's impacting on people's attitude towards our customer services, and also in terms of council tax, because I've noticed online there's been not petitions as such, but certainly campaigns of getting people to stop paying their council tax. It seems to be kind of a comment that a lot of people make online, just stop paying them, and then they will answer you, well, they'll do this, that, and the other. Have we noticed a drop in terms of payments being made across the board? And also, are we finding that people are threatening to do that on the phone when we're dealing with their complaints?
Yeah, we haven't seen a dramatic decline on the performance indicators. Council tax collection that's due this year is one of our PIs. It is very slightly down on the same point last year, the half-year mark. That's more to do with where we are in our recovery cycle, because as you know, somebody doesn't pay their council tax, they get a reminder and they get a final notice and then a summons for court. This time last year, the court was a little bit earlier than it is for these PIs. It was just after, and we always find that cash flow comes in. People have a red letter and they tend to pay, and it prompts them, which is the whole purpose of it. So I don't see that we are, very much adrift at all from last year. What we are seeing though are, not so much non-payment, but we have a lot of people who are trying to tie us up in legal knots with things. You might have seen them online where they claim to be freemen of the land or peacekeepers and things like this. And, you know, Myriam, you had one the other day, didn't you? You know, a letter that came in, and it's just full of legal mumbo jumbo that is meaningless, but they're time consuming because they have to be responded to.
Yeah, again, I've seen those kind of online protests do this.
Yes.
Yeah.
It does not actually get them anywhere. It just means that, and we've now got fairly standard responses to these questions because these letters tend to be quite cyclical. We get a spate of very similar ones which are downloaded from, you know, different websites, etc. And we've got a page on our internet as well, which answers a lot of these standard questions, like the legality of our notices and different things, which kills a lot of it dead because it's there. We've got a page explaining what we do.
Yeah, so I'm just conscious that we've got our customer services colleagues on online. So I don't know if Karen or Rihanna or Paige want to comment on if our customer services, if our contact centre is at the receiving end of a more difficult environment at this time, or pretty much business as usual.
I think it's pretty much business as usual. You'll actually see that happen probably year on year from different people. It's not something new that they experience. But like I said, as long as we have the information and knowledge that we can share with our residents, then that's all we can give, isn't it?
Okay. Happy with that? Okay. Any other questions from the committee for finance? I just wanted to pick up on the accountancy budget monitoring manager submissions, which I've picked up a few times over the years. It's improved, so it's going in the right direction, which is good because, you know, it was sort of 56% last year. So it's getting in the right direction, so that's pleasing to see. I know that some of it's outside your control, but I'm sure that you do try and have an influence. And it was a recommendation we made to ask the exec team last time, wasn't it, to sort of encourage them. So it's pleasing that that's sort of moving in the right direction. So it's good to pick up the good measures as well as the ones that are, you know, not so good. So that's really good. Any other questions from the committee?
No, just one more point was just in terms of the grant claims percentage of grant claims in line with the water bond deadlines. Are we finding that we're ending up with any pots of money at the end of the year that have not been accessed, and that they could be accessed if there was better communication or promotion?
No, I mean what that stat is showing is, well, what it doesn't show, I suppose, are the claims that were signed off like a day or two after. Oh, so they're just ones that are done at the cut-off time, obviously. So, you know, it just may be a day or two late, but the claim still goes in.
I was just wondering if there was any money that was just, you know, not being claimed. And
no, we're pretty so our colleagues in the various service departments are very switched on in terms of Welsh Government's, you know, grants availability and options for claiming more, etc. I mean, you know, our colleagues are well tuned in with Welsh Government on those things, and yeah, I think we do quite well actually on mopping up any additional money that might come through. We're not bad at all really on that.
Can I just pick up a point on head count? So this says that you have 49 less staff than March 24. That can't be right, can it? So you had 169 staff in March 24 and you've now got 120 as of September 25.
Yeah, well spotted. That can't be right. So we will look into that. Yeah.
That's good. Can't be right.
No.
I know you've been short-staffed, but you know,
we transferred some staff from contact centre into Revs and Bens because of the phone calls. But that's within the service area. Yeah. So we've had some people go on to the customer services project, but they're there, the two of them are there.
Yeah.
So, no, okay, we'll look into that.
Have a look, yeah. Okay, any other questions?
It's probably not sure if this is an area from this with you, Chair, but I think I've mentioned in the past about small public comms of online YouTube videos and clips that are available that can be accessed through the website. For those who are not that tech savvy or new to kind of using the internet, no demographic or genre, group of people in particular, but I think in the past I found the website quite difficult to work, and I know there's been a significant rate of improvement, even if there's still some links that are available on how to, like an idiot's guide, maybe a minute long. If you've got a question in this field, or if you're looking for some information, try this video and this might help you as a starting point, as opposed to getting on the phone. If your stumbling block is the website and the lack of either ability to find out what you want to find out.
I think that would be interesting for us to take a little think about where that might be helpful.
You did make a point to the comms team in their
mentioned it previously
as well. So yeah, recent said that take that back.
Yeah, I mean, it would be good as part of a wider council. I feel a little bit exposed if it was just us and finance doing it, but I think if it was part of a council-wide thing.
It's more.
I think most people do this, most folks. And if you can't find information, then starts.
We'll take that. It doesn't specifically relate to finance, but we'll take that back. I think. The more we want to encourage people to take the digital route, the easier we've got to make it to do that. Part of that's just making the tech easier to use. And the other bit of it is having something that explains to people how to use it. So
I mentioned that before with events. So if you're looking to put like an event on the community, how do you do it? Just a 1-2 minute video clip. This is what you need to do, and this is what help is available. Blah blah blah. It just allows people like the front door as opposed to trying to climb through the window.
A lot of our own training is done online. Which we all experience in our kind of professional lives, don't we?
If you think about it, it's almost e-learning for the general public.
It kind of is. No, it's a fair point. Thank you for that.
Any other questions from any of the committee? For any of the finance team? Okay, fantastic. We'll just wrap the recommendations up if that's okay.
Just a comment about the accountancy budget submissions, and please see that they've improved. And just clarification on the head count. Councillor Pym's query about the online YouTube videos. And such a made a comment about one of the call wait times. Possibly,
it was about calls being resolved first.
Calls resolved first time as a KPI.
Was there any other comments or recommendations that the committee would like to make?
Don't think so. All those, I think. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Bye, all.
Team can heating budget expecting Okay, right, what we got? Agenda, back to my agenda. We got Scrutiny Advisor's report. Yes, over to you.
So we've got a few outstanding actions and outcomes which I've been chasing. As soon as we get a response from the service areas, we'll send those on to the committee. Next meeting will be the second part of the mid-year service reviews. This will be for the Place Directorate, so there will be 4 service areas we'll be looking at. And then the meeting after that will be that will be the 2 weeks today. Yes, the 8th of December. So we'll hopefully be publishing the agenda next Monday for that.
That's 4 service areas, so it does end up being a little bit.
That's the last one.
Yeah, and then we'll have the budget consultations in January. Yeah. They're all in diary, aren't they?
Yeah, they're all in the diary. Yeah, we're just waiting to hear the definite dates for the budget, but yeah, we have got placeholders for it.
Yeah. Fantastic. Minutes of the previous meeting then?
Yeah, good.
Everybody happy to agree those?
Yeah, fine.
Fantastic. And then that's it. All done?
That's it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, have a good evening. Thank you. Take it easy.